And now you can talk about how Trump is doomed, that Jack Smith is a hero.
The walls are closing in.
The walls are closing in. So take it away, Nate.
Well, hey, listen, only thing I can say is I don't know if you guys have read the indictment, but I've written these things. I've made analysis of these things, and this one is pretty damn tight. I think they got him. And I think a lot of the excuses a lot of our brothers in the law are trying to make are all nonsense, because this is serious.
So break it down for us. Tell us why it is serious.
Oh, all right. Look, well, first, I'll go with some of the major issues. Like some people will say things like the Presidential Records Act. The Presidential Records Act works like this. Well, let's say a dignitary hands the president a bat and says, this is for you and the people of the U.S. Is that his personal bat, or is that a presidential record? So the Presidential Records Act distinguishes between those type of things. But what it doesn't distinguish with is things that are created and owned by the government itself. So if the president created the document, there's an issue. You can use the Presidential Records Act. But none of these documents we're talking about were created by the president. So the Presidential Records Act is not even triggered in this situation. So anybody saying the Presidential Records Act applies to this case doesn't know what the Presidential Records Act is or what it actually does. There's also another big misconception that everybody keeps saying, which is shocking because I even hear lawyers saying this, is that the president can declassify everything. That is wholly not true. So we all understand the president can declassify certain things, but he can only declassify things at a whim that are classified under his authority. But there are certain things that are classified under statutes. For instance, like nuclear secrets, military secrets, things of that nature. There's actually a statute, and they actually called something restricted data. Those things he cannot declassify by a whim. What he has to do is go through the procedure outlined in the statute to declassify it. So people saying that he can declassify anything he wants at will, that is false and misleading. Him saying I declassified everything does not save him. And then the third biggest thing is that for some reason people think that the documents, the military secrets, were his personal documents. That is not true. If there are things at your job, paperwork, and you take that paperwork home and then you quit or you're fired, that paperwork is not yours. That paperwork still belongs to the job. And that's exactly what happened here. They charged him with stealing government property. This is not your personal property. This is government property. What I'm saying is, yes, I think there are issues with this case, but this is a very strong case, and if there was anybody else on the planet, they would be looking to cut a deal. But I think Trump is just trying to use the fact that a lot of people are defending him wholesale and don't really know what they're talking about. That's the reason why it's all up in the air. But Trump has an issue, people.
All right. Does anybody else have thoughts? Joe.
First and foremost, I don't know that we know that a single one of these documents fall under that umbrella of documents that are classified by a statute rather than by some sub-agency under the direction ultimately of the chief boss being the president. Because think about this from a constitutional perspective. On what basis would Congress have the opportunity to strip the president of the executive powers as to how these offices should be run? I question under what constitutional basis Congress could ever strip the president of that authority. I think I agree with you that for certain types of documents, I can understand that there would be a stricter protocol as to what steps he must take to declassify those documents versus other documents. So but I was arguing on a constitutional basis when you were saying there are some documents which are beyond his authority to declassify. I don't accept that as being a constitutionally valid perspective. I don't know if there's a single document everyone keeps coming back to this whole nuclear codes thing. I don't know if there's a single document that actually falls under this rubric that you're trying to say is what sinks him, that he has an incapability of declassifying it, or there's a strict protocol. Are you aware of a specific document here that document, as opposed to being a letter from Obama, but that document actually is the nuclear codes that everyone has been terrified that he's been like handing to the Saudis or something?
Well, from what I'm understanding, the secrets about the nuclear capabilities fall under that regime. But I would have to look back at the statute just to make sure, because the last time I looked at the statute, there were anything about development of nuclear materials, the use, the location, all that, like it's listed there. So, and I know Trump did have stuff about the nuclear, blah, 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 this. So I'm assuming some of that stuff falls within that category. But again, just look at it and we'll see what they're arguing. But I'm assuming they're going to be arguing nuclear secrets are protected under the statute. he had nuclear secrets. Show us that he followed the statute. If he didn't follow the statute, then it's still classified.
Let's assume for a moment that there are no documents which fall under the statute which require a heightened level of declassification. Would you agree that it's not simply something in his mind, but it serves as a verbal act when a president at 8 o'clock in the morning on January 20th transports documents from the White House to a non-secured location, that serves as a verbal act that these are no longer classified documents?
Absolutely not. I think that argument's crazy.
If he's directing someone, take this box of documents from a secure place to a non-secure place, to me, that's a verbal act that's as expressed as him actually writing out saying these, I'm declassifying or following whatever protocols are more typical.
Just moving them to an unsecure place, you say is declass. I think that's kind of crazy, Joe. But again, hey, you got to, whatever saves his ass.
I'm trying to think logically here. I'm trying to think logically as to, yeah, go ahead, Andrea.
Let me jump in and just ask sort of the counter example here. What specific words does he need to use to declassify them? Are there specific words he needs to use?
I declare bankruptcy.
Well, I would suspect if you have the highest secrets in the U.S. government, then the first thing you would do is tell somebody, right? You can't just, unless we're saying that he can declassify them in his mind, and when he gets caught, then he can say, "Oh my God, I declassified them in my mind." So you're right. There may not be no magic words.
If in fact he was waving like nuclear secrets in front of this guy, or any sort of classified documents in front of this guy, and saying, "Here, look at this," showing it to a non-classified person, and we have a DA that is looking to charge him on anything possible, and yet for one reason or another, the charge that they exclude is the very treasonous act of intentionally sharing confidential secrets with someone who is not cleared. Do you not think that Jack Smith would have incorporated that into the charging documents? They would. No.
You must have didn't read the indictment, because that's like in the first couple of pages, right? He's literally telling people on tape, "I did not declassifid these."
No,
I don't know. Now hold on.
Stop. You're totally wrong. You're totally wrong, Nate.
All right. What do you say in the document? Let me see if I can pull it up.
That's why I started saying, don't you think Jack Smith would charge him with it? The reason he didn't is because Jack Smith knows that that's not what happened. But why did he put that in the indictment, which basically turns into some sort of lurid novel, which if you don't know that fact, everyone, including you, Nate, would walk away thinking that like some jackass, he's taking classified documents and sharing them with non-secure personnel, because that is fodder for the media, it is fodder for the public, it is fodder to make everybody think that he is some sort of traitor to this country who doesn't care about our confidential secrets and is willing to expose us to risks of our national defense. And that's why I'm saying to you, the fact that he was not charged with it tells me factually that there was no classified documents in his hand that he's waving in front of him saying, "I didn't declassify these. Here, look at them. I didn't declassify them. I can't declassify them anymore."
Joe, exactly everything that you just made up sounds amazing. But let me just read.
It's not amazing. It's logical. It's logical as to why he wasn't charged.
I'm in absolute agreement with Joe. Joe is 100% correct. The problem is that all of these issues, when you read this, all of these issues do not take into account the position of president as the leader of the Article 2 executive branch. So the first thing that needs to be, the first filter, the reason this is unprecedented and the reason this is such a malicious political prosecution is because he was the president and has the plenary power to declassify. Now, there are no nuclear documents. That has not been alleged, nor is that the FBI put that media out when they first released it. But that there are no nuclear codes type secrets that are referenced here. These are not. That is not what this is. And Andrea hit it kind of right on the money. To whom does he have to announce his decision to declassify to? As president, who does he go and tell that he has decided to declassify documents? Who is the person and who's the recipient of that notice?
Anyone on the planet, I believe. He can't just declassify in his mind, right? He has to.
Why not? Yes,
other people have to. Other people can know.
All
right. So how would you know it's declassified?
He could do it through conduct.
How would he? All right. So how would anyone else know it's declassified? At Trump National Golf in Bedminster, New Jersey, during an audio recorded meeting, Trump actually showed them the documents and said that they weren't declassified. No, you said it was. You said he was representing other food stuff.
How do you know that? How do you know that?
No, because it says in the indictment that you said you read. If you read the indictment, you would see it says. All right, so let me. So I'm going to read the part where they say he showed them the documents.
And the feds would never lie in an indictment.
Yes, I mean indictments are always true.
Yes, I believe everything they say as a criminal defense lawyer.
I mean, because that's what I tell my guys when they come into my office with an indictment, bro. You're guilty. My father.
And even if he did say that, it doesn't matter because his declassification can happen by his action of removing the document from the premises. When he is president and he removes the documents, puts them in his box, says, these are for my library, his action alone is sufficient to declassify by act. It's a de facto declassification.
Even if he doesn't know it.
Once it's declassified, it's over. He has done it by action. For him to then come and say, look, secret documents, aren't I sexy? Doesn't matter because it's already been, he cannot then reclassify something that's been declassified. He has the power at the time he is president up until January 20th or whenever the swearing in goes to declassify by act.
The president is the boss. He's the chief of the executive branch. He needs to know what's classified, what's not declassified, which is why he alone has that unique power. Not the vice president, not anyone who's the head of the FDA, the DOJ, the FBI, the CIA, and these other triple letter agencies. None of them had that same authority because ultimately they were all answerable to the president. But because
in fact, Andrea had brought this point up, and her point was excellent. And that is, what are the magic words he's supposed to say? And there's a very famous example in the Bush administration when they were talking about Gulf War documents. There were very highly classified documents that were given out, that were being reviewed within the White House, within the room, the little capsule. And he says, I think it was, he was talking to one of his major underlings, but like one of the cabinet members. And he gave the document to him and says, well, take that home and review it. And then the person says, well, this is classified. I can't take it out of this room. And Bush just points at it and says, now it's declassified. Here it is. He didn't have to do that. He didn't have to wave a magic wand and say abracadabra. The fact is I'm the president of the United States. Here is a document. I'm ordering you to take this home and review it. That is the act of declassification sufficient for that person to take that out of the room and do it. He doesn't there's no magic word that he needs to say. If there is a magic word, what is that, and what is the source of your authority for that magic word?
I understand we're all lawyers and we're all trying to stretch this in whatever way. But Trump himself, they have him on tape himself saying he didn't classify certain things. This will be the first time in U.S. history that I think this goes in that way, where the president just classified in his mind, doesn't tell anybody. Again, this is going to be for the jury to decide, but I think Trump is in trouble. And I think these arguments are fallacious at best.
This is not an issue of jury. This is a legal issue for a judge.
It will be a legal issue. Yeah, I agree.
Do you disagree that's a legal issue as to whether it's a verbal act?
Because he's going to be arguing that he declassified them. So I think that's going to be a matter of fact for the jury. He's going to say, I did it this way. The judge is going to make that ruling, but that's still going to be argued. You don't think the jury is going to...
Have you read the Clinton Sockshore case?
Yes, I have seen the Clinton Sockshore case.
So what is your interpretation of that?
I don't think about things that are created by the government for government purposes and that are owned by the government.
The office of the president is not separate from the individual person of the president. I don't think that distinction holds at all. I think that the fact that the president is, or was at the time, Donald Trump, he is the personification. That means he has the absolute power of classification or declassification for all of his underlings within the executive branch. And so to say that there's a distinction there between some handwritten note that he makes from, say, the handwritten note that his secretary makes because it wasn't him, that you're trying to split the person from the office and the executive. This is why this is so problematic. It's a different case. It's not a traditional criminal case like Andrea or myself or you or Joe, any of us would normally deal with, because we are not dealing with a traditional criminal. We are dealing with the head of the executive branch during this time in question. That is a unique position within the government, and things are different when you're the president. It is a powerful position. It's a very powerful position, and he answers to nobody under the Article 2.
Trump was asked by the National Archives to turn over these documents. He refused. Then they went to a grand jury and got a subpoena. Then they gave statements, and they gave statements saying that, hey, we turned over everything under oath. Then they found out from a snitch in Trump's own camp that they didn't do it. Now you have somebody who's left office, who has all these secrets, that they believe are classified, that are still, matter of fact, marked classified. And the law says if they're marked classified, you treat them as classified. So then you get the subpoena, then you get the raid, right? Because he's now defied the subpoena. And now, if you read through the indictment, all the lawyers say, yeah, they were trying to hide documents. They was asking us whether they should return them over and all that stuff. So now with all this, now you get to the end where they say, okay, we have to charge this guy because we've got all these things. And at any point, he could have given them back. Again, I'm with Bill Barr. I'm with Turley. They all see this case and all see the nuance in it and say, this is a serious case.
Can I also jump on Andrea's point, too, which is about the rule of law and about how this is much more damaging to the rule of law, not only for the unequal treatment of Democrats and Republicans, but it's also, this is a prosecution of the former president, who is the leading candidate for the opposition party to Biden by the Biden Justice Department. This is not a special counsel. There's no separation. This is Biden, the current president, prosecuting his main contender for paperwork. This is the most damaging, dangerous prosecution that this country has ever seen. This is a major constitutional crisis. And as a lover of the country and the rule of law and the equal protection of law, this is an abuse. And this is something, as far as I'm concerned, they should burn the DOJ and the FBI to the ground and start over, salt the earth. Because to me, the deep state does not run this country. The people run this country. And this is an attack on the individual sovereignty of our free country. That's how serious I believe this prosecution is. What is it? Where are we going with this? Because once you lose these rights,
realpolitik, Steve.
Judge Berman Jackson found in the Clinton Sox case that the mere act of taking the tapes from the White House inherently designated those paper records as personal. NARA is not a superior authority to the president under Article 2. And what statute may be written above the authority of a constitutional provision? Is the question.
Zero.
Oh, okay.
Zero. Sorry, zero. I got a call with this.
So then
absolutely none.
Okay, so then the argument is that because it was his department and everything else, and he was in office at the time, that he took it, that he had every right to do whatever the hell he wanted. And that kind of goes right back to the Barnes thesis, I believe.
Yeah, but Barnes is horribly wrong. Talk to Attorney General Barr. He'll tell you exactly why Barnes is wrong. But the key point is that these are government documents, government records. So these aren't personal records.
Government is Article 2. Government is the Constitution. The government is not something separate from the Constitution. The government is subservient to the Constitution. Yeah, Article 2, every department of every agency is under Article 2. So that is it's artificial to say the government is over here and the Constitution and the president's over here. No, the whole government is founded on our Constitution.
Yeah, that's not the point I was making. The point I was making is because of the property, personal property, and government property, right? Trump has personal property, but there's some of that property that happen to belong to the government. The secrets and stuff, that actually belongs to the government. That's not his personal property.
Who is the government?
You would agree with that, right? The government, when Trump was in office, he was the government
property.
It doesn't belong to him personally, but it belongs to him as the agent, the top guy under Article 2. It's his government.
Well, Joe, let's just leave it at you're right, and that's